Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Seattle Angel Conference first pre-event workshop. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about what makes a company investable. Christanne, would you like to drop the slide and introduce yourself?
Sure. I think I've met most people, but I am co-leading this investment round. Jesse is my partner in crime. If you don't know my story, I started angel investing when I had a startup and wanted to learn a little bit more about what it meant to, how investors thought and that sort of thing. And then I just really fell in love with it. I love that as a investor, I get to invest in the future. You'll learn that I'm an impact investor, so I'm trying to invest in a better future. I've loved working with all of the people who come to the Seattle Angel Conference. I love that I'm not doing due diligence all by myself. I'm a software engineer and very analytical, and I really need to have that balance with some financials, with some, supply sort of things. So that's me. Nice to meet you all.
Jesse, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, can you guys hear me? Because my internet is okay. Yeah, my name is Jessie. Like Kristen introduced earlier, I am co-leading the SAC 26 with her. I'm currently traveling internationally, so if connection stops, it's not my fault. And I was a first-time angel investor in SAC 25. And since then, I have invested in 3 companies, 2 through SAC 25 and 1 through another angel conference. So really just, sort of fell in love with this whole concept of, angel investing. So sign up for leading the next round. I would have to say that I'm still learning, still very, very new to this field. So yeah, kind of trying to use this opportunity as as my way of learning, digging deeper into the field. Great to meet you all.
Well, thanks so very much. And I'm John Seacrest, and I'm the founder of the program, and I'm going to play the facilitation role throughout the next 3 months. And as we go along with this, what we're going to try to do is to give people the chance to actually go do all of the things that are important along the way. I'm going to pause.
You get to record again. There you go. Okay, so let's talk a little bit then about the overall process. So I think I've gone through this with many of you, but the how we get to a investable company is through the process that we're going to take you on here. So I'm going to talk a little bit about sort of calendaring and what we're doing at each event, but each one of those is getting us to more and more hone our list of companies until we have that winner at the end. So starting with 1-minute pitches, where, John was threatening today that he's going to cut it off at 60 companies because last time I think we had like 100. So it was a bit too many to go through, but we are working on, we've got, I think we're like a dozen shy of that right now. And I personally have been talking with a lot of really good companies, so I'm excited about them joining us. So they will come in on the second meeting actually and give their 1-minute pitches. And then we'll have a meeting where we talk about all of those companies, not all, and talk about sort of and vote in order to come up with our top 24, who then will come and give us 3-minute pitches. Then we will have another meeting where we'll vote, and then we will come down to those 12 semi-finalists who will give us 10-minute pitches. We do have times in here to actually talk to the founders and get to know them a little bit. So we'll assign everybody, a few companies to go talk to. and interview the founders. And then once we get to these 6 finalists, we do a month of due diligence. And then the last event is a demo where everybody is all of the founders get to, again, pitch their company. We get to talk a little bit about ask some questions that reveal some of the things we learned in due diligence. And we also invite a lot of other investors to come to that. A few of you have asked me like, well, okay, I'm not sure, what's the right, what are we going to be doing each time, and making sure that you're there at the critical meetings. So what I've been telling people is make sure that you're there at these selection meetings, right? So our first one is all of us talking about kind of the overview of the program and introducing everyone. The second one is where everybody comes and pitches, and John's really good about putting us off into different rooms where we can meet and talk to the founders one-on-one. So this is where you start with finding an investable company. And so and we'll be sitting to this, but like your preparation for that is all around, okay, what questions, if I get a minute to talk to a founder, what's going to help me decide whether or not that's a company that I want to put on my top 24 list, right? We'll talk a little bit more about this, like, do you ask them about their team? Do you ask them about product market fit? Do you ask them about traction? So you should be thinking about like, what are the questions you want to have of those founders? Then we will go from those initial 60 companies down to 24. And then they will come back, and we actually have 2 nights where they'll come in and give us their 3-minute pitch. And then we will do the semi-final selection. And in between then's when we actually do some of the coffee talks. So we'll go and we'll meet with each of the founders. We use Gust a lot, so make sure that you're set up on Gust. So, all of the company information will be on Gust.
We'll do that on the 3rd of September.
Okay, perfect. Okay. And then yeah, we'll see their semifinal. The semifinalists will do their pitch, and then we will select the finalists and go through the due diligence with them. We will divide up into teams, 1 for each of the 6 finalists, and spend a month going through all of their paperwork, talking to their founders and their advisors and their customers, and collecting information. We still meet every week, and this is, I like to say that you've heard, Elaine say that she's been doing this for, since SAC 7, and we learn something from all of you, right? The questions that especially some of the new people that come in and ask, for me anyway, it always challenges my thinking about this. So, I would encourage you as you go through this to think about like, well, okay, what questions do I want to bring tonight? How is it that I can make sure I understand the process, but also all of the companies that are coming in and pitching. And so we learn a lot from the questions that people are asking. I'm only saying that in this due diligence weeks because each week we go through, okay, what are you thinking about this company? And the due diligence team will present sort of their, the good, the bad, the ugly that they've discovered about that company. And, we get to ask questions about it, but also we get to see how they're approaching due diligence. So I'm not only learning about due diligence from my team, I'm learning about it from everybody else and how they're doing it. And then we do the final event, and John brings in, a lot of investors from around the region. And then we vote on, and that night we actually go and vote and select the finalists. I'm going to pause a second. That was a lot. Any questions on any of this still remaining in people's minds about how this all is going to go?
Elaine has her hand up. Do you want to drop the slide so we can
Yeah.
see people?
So Christine, one of the things I would love to add is one of the things that I think is so great about SAC is learning by doing. And what this whole program is so what we usually try and do is have 20 returning angel investors with 20 new angel investors. So it's a mix. So if you're new, don't feel like there won't be people to turn to, or that you are kind of being thrown in the deep end of the water. It's the whole part of the program is to kind of put you in a mix with other angel investors, roll up your sleeves, and learn by doing. And when you kind of graduate from SAC, you can decide, hey, do you want to return to SAC, or do you want to join other angel groups that are in town that function differently? But this is a great learning platform and kind of jumping off point from that perspective. I've jumped to a couple different places, but never leave. So just simply because I enjoy that so much. The other thing to note is most of, and I'm going to say most because the recent economic conditions have kind of changed the profile of some of the companies we see, but most of the companies are very early stage startups that we see. So not only are some of the angel investors kind of new to this, most of the entrepreneurs are new to this. So part of the role that we have is to kind of help them along and help them understand what a data room is, what we might want to be interested in a data room. Oh goodness, yeah, you need something other than a 10-minute pitch. You need a 3-minute pitch. What do you need to put in a 3-minute pitch? All of those kind of things that we can help the entrepreneurs along the way too. So it's a very learning by doing kind of way. And I think that is one of the things that makes SAC so special. And hopefully by doing that, it's not actually intimidating, but actually kind of welcoming.
Any other questions?
I just have one. Is it literally all done virtually? There is no in-person, no, you don't, when you say have coffee, do you mean you set up a small meeting? I mean, what does that look like? What's been your experience?
Definitely, the majority of it, and this is, as most things since COVID, the majority of it is online. But if there are, if the company is local, a lot of times we'll go and visit them in person, especially if it's part of the due diligence. We do try to do some social things, and then there has been some recommendations that maybe we could propose at least getting a due diligence team together once so that they get to know each other in person. So, we're trying to facilitate all of that. But the fact that it's virtual allows people to participate who couldn't otherwise, and myself included, right? I'm a parent, and it would be hard for me to come to something on Tuesday evenings.
It also has allowed us to broaden the geographical area for both the angel investors and the entrepreneurs, right? I think even last time, didn't we have some companies from out of the country, right?
Yeah. Well,
so
we regularly have companies that are from outside of Seattle, and
right.
We typically regularly have companies that are from Canada. That's sort of normal. I don't remember us having people from outside of North America last time, but we do in the transatlantic version. It's typically a good 50% are from outside of the U.S. That answer the question for you, Liz? Cool.
And let me just pop in. I think one of the things kind of reflecting on going virtual, I think we have seen a little bit higher caliber of companies lately, in terms of in terms of the entrepreneurs and the companies, potentially how far along they are, or what kind of traction they have, that sort of thing. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic that has come from going virtual.
Absolutely.
I just look at how many sidecars we had last time. Were there 3 or 4? Like, I mean, I don't remember that from the first time I did it. So
Well,
really big companies.
And I do have to say, John kind of always says, if we had a crystal ball and knew which company to invest in, right? We all would do that. And diversification in your portfolio wouldn't be as important. And so I think, John, you like to say, hey, as a collective, we're good at kind of paring down to the semifinalists, and maybe even zoning in on those finalists. But really, it's kind of hard to be able to say, yes, there is the one in the 6. So there's definitely usually different opinions on who gets the check. And so one of the things that's actually pretty exciting is that there is usually excitement from investors that has been created by the due diligence process for some of the companies that haven't won, to be able to add in additional funds for an additional investment. I've done that like the last 2 times, just simply because the companies that we've seen get to the finals have been, I think, really good caliber.
And what's cool about that is that then the company you invest in is also being invested in by other people, which then only increases their chances, right? So
yeah.
So maybe, not everybody has gone to the Angel 101 class, and we should set some framing. So we know that from the work of Rob Wiltbank that he studied the Oregon Angel Conference for a decade, and that statistically the finalists outperform the ones that don't make it to the finals. But we also know that the winner does not statistically do better than the finalists. So the interpretation of that is we can pick the losers, but we can't pick the winners, right? And then when we pick good companies that in our mind are going to be successful, then of the 10 that we pick, 3 of them go to 0 pretty quickly. 3 of them return less than what we put in. 3 of them return a little bit, but not a lot. And then 1, so 10%, produce the vast majority. It turns out that 70% of the money you get back out of your portfolio comes from that 10%. But 30% of your returns comes from the ones that return a little bit. So both of those are good numbers, right? And so it's well worth paying attention to where you think that company is. You need to be investing in things that are at scale. And if you're not investing in something with scale, then you have to be using some other mechanism of investing. And I can talk about local investing and how to structure that, but we'll do that another time. And so we've been running these workshops, including the Angel 101 workshop in the Seattle Angel Meetup group. And we've been putting the recordings of those into the YouTube channel, which I put both of those into the chat. Now, our belief is that in order to get to a good portfolio that has a 95% chance of getting return, you need to be in 20 deals or more. And I think if your net worth is below 5 million, then you probably should be in 40 instead of 20, right? And work that way. In the very beginning, you can't write a check that's big enough to get into Series A. And in Series A is when the magic MBA equations actually start turning out numbers that make any sense. And so really you need to mitigate your risk by many small bets, not picking big bets. And it's not that we believe that we should invest more in this company. It's that we see more interesting companies and we should broaden out our network so we get a higher chance of getting something to work.
And I would pause, John, and kind of just reflect on that a moment, because when I first started angel investing, this was the concept that I didn't get. I didn't get that this is kind of a long-term process, that it's not one investment, it's not two investments, it's not 10 investments, it's 20 to 40 investments. And how do you actually do that in a compelling way? So Rob Wilbank also says that what is it that we need to do at least 20 hours of due diligence, and that we probably look at 40 companies before we write one check. So if you think about that, if that was your full-time job, that would take an enormous amount of time, especially if you're doing it by yourself. But most of us are not doing it as our full-time job. And so in order to be able to kind of get those numbers through the funnel, we do need some help, some assistance. So to me, that is one of the compelling reasons of why I like to invest with a group. Of course, I do have some investments on my own, but to be able to rely on the expertise of a group when you're going through due diligence is super great. So for instance, I am a data geek, but I am not the best at looking at the financials. So it's super cool that in SAC, we do have great people who like to look at the financials, right, Chrisanne?
Yeah.
And so with a collective, we can have a much more well-rounded opinion on a company and get to that 20 to 40 hours easily. And we crush that number in what we do in due diligence. But it allows us to kind of spread out the work, learn from each other, and I think benefit in the end by some real insight from the DD teams. So this concept of diversification, I think, is super, super important to understand as new investors kind of coming into this, because it was something that I didn't latch onto for like the first couple of years, honestly. So learn from my mistakes. And that's something, it's definitely in for the long haul. And the other thing to note is that, so even like your first investment, let's talk about like what might come out of SAC 26, right? We are looking for almost a marriage of investors and a company, this good fit, because we will be with them from like 7 to 10 years. So when you think
Or
about
12 or 15.
or 12 or 15 or right. So when we think about, and this was another thing that took me a long time to figure out, it's a long time horizon for one investment. But think about the time horizon you might have if you're not doing this full time to get you to 20 to 40 investments. And how do you want to do that, right? How do you want to get that diversified portfolio for you so that you have a number of great options in your investment portfolio that could create a return?
And so if we look at that, the math that I do is I'm going to take the amount of money that I can burn in a fire barrel, and that's how much I'm willing to angel invest. So I'm willing to burn 10% of my net worth. And then my lifestyle is not really going to be undermined by that. And then I need to get that into 20 deals or 40 deals. So I'm a millionaire, 100,000 divided by 20, $5,000 checks. That's how we got to $5,000 checks. And then the company doesn't want a $5,000 check. They typically want a $50,000 check. And so it's always good to be engaging, if your net worth is below 5 million, investing as a group in things. And it's better to write more $5,000 checks than it is to write $25,000 checks in 5. It's better to write, $45,000 checks, and your outcome should be much better.
So that piece, John, is another thing to pause on. There is not another group in town where you can go start investing for $5,000-$6,000.
Actually, I think the new fund out of Alliance of Angels allows you to put in $5,000 or effectively make $5,000 investments. And
Oh, well,
so,
that's awesome, because Alliance of Angels, that was not the case before.
right. So there's been some discussion there around that particular issue, both in Alliance of Angels and also a bit of a discussion about that at E8.
Yeah.
And so, but the problem is that it's a fund that is a passive fund. So you can't be the active person. So Vinay is asking, are managed angel funds something that you can be part of as a part-time investor, right? And so let's dive into definitions again. Most angel groups are networks. The companies apply. The last thing we heard was that some of them are seeing 60 to 80 companies a month. They put it through a screening committee. Screening committee, stirs them around, picks 3, and then those 3 present. And then if you like it, you lean in and join the due diligence effort that may or may not be coordinated, which may or may not turn into a report, which then you decide to go on the cap table directly. And the expectation is you're writing a 25K check.
Right.
That's a network. Now, most people are below 5 million in net worth, like 85% of accredited people below 5 million in net worth. And I personally believe you shouldn't be writing a 25K check if you're below 5 million in net worth. So I also probably believe that probably you should wait till 10 million before you start writing 25K checks, because again, I think breadth works better than depth in this case. But there's 4 other ways you can do investment and get groups. So there's a managed fund, which I think is what Vinay means when he says a managed angel fund, which is we have a GP or 2, and then we have a bunch of LPs, and the LPs put the money in and the GPs make the decision. But we also have passive funds where everybody's an LP, and then we have an algorithm that every time Kristan invests, we match Kristan, right? That's just our algorithm, and we follow the algorithm. And that's typically what's happening at E8. If 2 E8 people invest, then the fund will invest and go alongside them. But then you could have an active angel fund, which is like what the Oregon Angel Fund was, and was the inspiration for me to create the Seattle Angel Fund, which became Sea Change Fund, which is now defunct, which is now being replaced by Venturous, which is an active angel fund where everybody does the work. Everybody goes and finds deals, everybody screens deals, everybody does the due diligence, and as a group, you make a decision, and that group decision goes to spend the money that's in the fund, that you have already put the money in the fund before you look at the companies. And then the 4th pattern is the event fund, which is what we do. We do all the same stuff, but then we also know what day we're going to make the decision. So November 20th, we will pick a company. We know that. We know how much money we're going to have, 5,000 times the number of investors that sign up. And so everything's constrained in that. And we're going to, as a group, have the money committed, and then we're going to pick a company, and we know what day we're going to do that. And picking that day then ends up turning out to twist the process in a bunch of ways. And this is really designed to be a learning process, and we optimize for learning as opposed to optimizing for investment. And so when we get to the point where we start cutting corners on one thing to make the investment process better in whatever thing, you'll see a lot of friction coming from me, because I'm trying to drive us back to let's do things that create learning. Now, yes, funds can create more diversification for sure, and they can create more diversification with less work. And if you have a group of people doing things, I have my 10 friends, we all put in our money, we're going to do, 5 investments a year, and each of us will take a company or 2 to manage over the duration of this. Then that allows us to not be bogged down with 40 board meetings to pay attention to, because I know that 38 of them are covered by somebody else. And so a nice slow pace of, 4 to 5 investments a year spread out over a decade, that's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. That's what Venturous will get you. That's also what some of the other angel funds can get you if you manage it right. So any questions about any of that stuff?
That was a lot.
Yeah, I know. But it sort of sets the bar so that we can step into the next step, which is when I gather a group of people and one of the people is a unicorn hunter and another one is all about investing in hometown investing and another one wants everything to be green and the other one wants women have to be 50% of the makeup of the founding team, all of a sudden you have a bunch of conflicting investment theses. And so I'd sort of like to hear from everybody what they think their investment thesis is.
And I just want to make a point that I think one of the coolest parts about going through at the end of Seattle Angel Conference, yes, you have an investment in a company, but you have an investment thesis. And so, we talk about like our goal is to invest in a really good company. I know this particular session is really looking at how do we make ensure that or look for a company that's investable. An outcome from participation in this will be your first draft investment thesis, or if you're like me, it'll be an iteration on it because I iterate on it every time and I improve it every time.
Yep. So let me get us to seeing everybody's lovely faces, if I could. I seem to have, there we go. You, gallery. Does everybody see everybody else?
Yep.
Hopefully. Yeah, good. So I'd love to hear some other investment theses. And since I know that Trish is getting one, I'll put her on the spot. Trish, do you have an investment thesis?
Work in progress. It's gotten better. It's less fuzzy than it was before the first time I went through SAC. So for me, I think it's really a function of three things. It's looking for companies. I do like clean, green tech, like things that are going to make the world better and have an impact. I'm starting to find a nuance there, which is I kind of like this idea of disrupting legacy systems. So that's maybe a more refined piece of that. The second thing is, as an angel investor, I want to know if there's something I can do to help them beyond just this initial check. So is it a company that I think I'll be able to invest in the future? Is it a company that I might have a connection to, that I can introduce for them? And maybe the founder may or may not need or want that, but I like to invest in companies where I can give them more than just money to start. And then the third thing is, I think the management team makes such a big difference, especially early stage. I want to make sure I have confidence that even if that thing that they pitched to us today is not the thing they end up building, that team is going to be able to navigate the pivot. So for me, like belief in the management team's capability, not just to do the thing they're trying to do, but to pivot is really important. And I'm saying that from having invested in the past and have a couple companies that have pivoted many, many times and are thus still alive, and then a couple that just crashed and burned when their initial iteration didn't work out.
Right.
So I just would love to talk real quick about that last one because it's an understanding of, like, if you're looking at the team, it's not that they can articulate the solution as much as they understand the problem that they're solving.
100%.
Right? So it's like, do they have some experience in it? Have they lived it themselves? How much research have they done to really understand the problem? So I think that's one of the things we're really looking at, because that's what's going to allow them to pivot successfully.
There's also that like humility piece of it. Like, do they also know what they don't know?
Right.
And are they open and willing to talk about that and seek feedback and have a plan for how they're going to fill that knowledge gap?
Are they coachable?
Yes, that's what I was going to say. That's why we spend so much time talking to them, is we want to know whether they're going to take our feedback and evolve with it.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. I often spend time saying, Techstars mantra is team, 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 market size, traction, idea. When they take a company into a Techstars accelerator at the very beginning, they're thinking extra on the team, market size, traction, and idea, right? And ideas last in that order, right? And now you've just done a bunch of team questions, right? Is the founder honest and feels honest, feels capable, feels a whole bunch of things? And we do a pretty intuitive analysis of the team, as far as I can tell. And then what else, right? So you're going to go to the first day. It's going to be a 1-minute pitch. You're going to see at least 60 companies. And then how do you sort the ones that you go chase down? On what basis? Margot, you got a thought on that?
Sorry, what was the question?
We're going to do on the 10th of September, 1-minute pitches. We're going to have hopefully 60 companies show up, and we're going to go bang, 1 full hour of 1-minute pitches, and bang at the end, we're going to say, go talk to someone interesting. On what basis will you sort those 60?
I think if they have my kind of one of the questions I like asking is, what job are you doing? Like, what purpose are you serving? And if they can like very succinctly answer that and have a clear vision of like, what's the job that I'm solving? Then I think that's kind of like one of my tests in a way for especially a new founding team, just to ensure that, you know, they're really clear on what they're solving.
Is that
So-
the job to be done? Is that what
Yeah.
you? Yeah, I love the job to. Okay.
Yeah.
So are you asking about how they keep you busy, or are you asking about the impact they're having in the world?
Like, what is the key area that the company that they're founding is solving for?
So are you?
Who are they
I'm
serving?
I'm asking the what question, or I'm asking the why question.
Are you asking, is it what or why?
Yeah, when you say what's the job to be done, are you asking for a detailed description of the what is it that we do, or are you asking why we do this particular thing because we want to have a specific impact? Right? The value proposition compared to the definition of what the product is. I'm building a platform that does
Right.
blah, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah.
I make for fewer children getting kicked out of school, right?
Yeah.
Two different things, same product, right?
Like, do they have a
Okay,
good
for that.
understanding of the market and what it needs and why they're going after it?
I mean,
Right.
job to be done basically says that I'm serving this audience who is trying to achieve this job, trying to get this job done, right? I hire a hammer to help me put in a nail. And so what is it that is going to cause that person to hire you instead of whatever it is that they're currently doing to complete that job? I
Yeah.
love that. Like, hey, but it's hard to explain to people and to get them to like, yeah.
Well, I suspect that that's also hard to understand in a minute. And so what is probably the question that I would expect to have happen first is, do I care that they succeed at doing this? Right? I'm going to build a box. Do I care that they build this box? If the answer is I don't care that they build the box, it might be a perfectly great team, but unless I knew them for some other reason, probably I don't care about this company at all because I don't care that they succeed, right? And usually caring that they succeed is about the value proposition where they make the world better in some way, rather than how they make it better in some way. At least that's my impact investment thesis, right?
So John just gave you a really good tip. Go through those 60 companies and mark off your no's first. So it makes it a lot easier to get to really analyze the yeses. If you can say, I'm just not interested in this solving
like,
this problem.
I don't want to invest in gambling. I don't want to invest in guns. I don't want to invest in things that are basically rent, right? Where I put up a great big gate and charge people to go through the gate. None of those are interesting to me. So I would check them off because I don't care about that. I know that one of our alumni investors has a sin thesis. Her thesis is, I invest in things that people do addictively. I invest in smoking. I invest in gambling. I invest in the things that they will come back and do it again and again and again and again, right? So she's got like exactly the opposite thesis that I have. So it might be difficult for us to both be invested in the same company, because I will push them one way and she'll push them the other way. And we will never, ever, ever agree on what we're trying to do. And so that's part of the reason why getting an investment thesis is useful, is to not only filter the companies, but filter the other investors who might be not compatible at some way, right? And so in this program, you will get perspective on startups that are very early startups, but you also get perspective on very early investors along the way. So Lisa suggested that she had an impact thesis, right? That she does a philanthropy and that maybe she can continue and be more effective with her philanthropy. And I think I have a whole rabbit hole that we can go down on why angel investing for philanthropy is better than regular philanthropy, but I'll stay away from that tonight. But the idea that you can build regenerative capital, that you put money on a mission, that company succeeds, you get more money back, so you can do it again and do more of the same mission and drive a mission instead of having to go beg your friends for money to do the mission. You just keep doubling down on the mission over and over again. I think that's a win. And so that might be, I not only care about the thing because it's kind of cool and I like it, but because it has an impact in the world that's interesting and I want to see that, more of that happen. So now that I've decided that I like the idea of that succeeding, then what's the next most important thing? So when we do the voting on GUST, the first voting is 4 issues: on the team, on the market, on the product, and on the impact. Those are the 4 questions, right?
And I
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to comment, when I went through last time, I had a pivot point in the process where initially I went through and I was like, oh, the impact, generally speaking, it was like, what's the SAC impact? Like, would anybody care about this impact? And then after, I don't even remember how many rounds, there were so many companies, I realized, like, hey, this is my money. I need to think about what impact I care about. And that changed my vote. And it was really interesting. Like, there were several companies that I think are amazing companies, and I wish them well, and I hope that they're wildly successful. But when it came to my money, as you know, if I was a bajillionaire, yeah, give them all money, but I'm not. So, I had to like narrow it down. And I think that's just like one note is, especially if we have a lot of companies and a lot of companies that are in spaces that feel like, yeah, they're really changing the world. That can be a little thing to get hung up on. Don't do what I did.
Right. So there are definitely people that have an investment thesis that's pretty narrow. Sorry, a startup that has a action thesis that's pretty narrow. I'm going to make clean water by cleaning up beaches. I may care about that. I may not care about that. And that's probably something I should think hard on, even though it's an impact activity. Maybe I don't care that, we drop millions of dollars in taking plastic off the beaches. Yes, Elaine.
So the other thing I have on team, and it's not necessarily the first thing I look for, but it kind of comes up kind of quickly, is my bullshit meter. so there are entrepreneurs out there that I don't want to go into an investment in because I don't trust them. I don't believe they're doing things on good faith. I don't, as you go through, you can understand when they're not turning in their financials on due diligence. And so it's kind of like peeling an onion. Sometimes you might find that in the 1-minute pitch, and you will see some people that you just don't think have good character. And it doesn't happen all the time, but as John's saying, trust is the total currency. And in SAC, there was one time, because it is not just your vote, it's everybody's vote. There was a vote where one of the finalists was definitely somebody that I didn't want to give my money to, but they ended up winning. And they ended up winning because they were seen as a unicorn. And in that SAC round, there were many unicorn hunters in that. The good news is it was a split investment. So all the money didn't go there. But I would say that
So let's talk about that split, right? There were the unicorns and they wanted to go. And what was the other one?
I would say it's kind of a single.
We see how the money is going to be made and it's doing something good.
Yeah.
Right. And
yeah.
So
and
there were a fundamental thing, and the harder we pushed, the harder those two groups solidified, and we cut the baby in half and made 2 investments.
Right. But at the end of the day, kind of what I'm saying for the new people in here is that you have to realize that this is almost like a marriage. And you need to really trust the entrepreneur that you are giving a check to. And if there is anything in your spidey sense or in your due diligence, or that they say or that they do that gives you pause, there are many other investments out there that won't. So have that as something that you are kind of always have your radar on. And I think that radar will not prove you wrong.
And share that. When your spidey sense goes off, tell the other SAC investors so that they can say, like, oh, tell me more about that. I can't, even this last time somebody had brought something up and I was like, I'm going to look for that. I want to see. It was, I think, a coachability question. And I was like, all right, somebody else just said that they had an interaction with that person that made them feel like they are not at all coachable. So I want to pressure test that because I know that matters to me. And I want to see if I get maybe that person had a bad day, or is this a pattern, right? So do share like your spidey sense, or if you have industry knowledge, or like, that's the great thing about working in a group is you get to hear that from other people.
And then I would say on the other side of the spectrum, right, there is an investment that I made, and it almost didn't matter what product this founder was going to make. I was going to invest in him because he was so freaking amazing. He could hire the right people for any job. There would be so many people, he'd be like the Pied Piper. The right people, he could hire the right people at the right stage at the right time and get the right advisors. And man, you can see he's on a roll. So there really is this spectrum of entrepreneurs, and you will see that in the 1-minute pitches. Mark my words, when you go in and you see 60 people pitching to you, one right after another, you will start to see that. You will see how much they took it seriously to practice a 1-minute pitch and to do their things. Did they actually finish on time? Do they have slides? Have they thought about what they're saying, right? In order to get your money, you got to make sure that they are all in on this. So what is the exchange they are bringing to you at the 1-minute pitch, the 3-minute pitch, the 10-minute pitch? And is that worth your time and money and effort?
So sadly, we're doing a thing that's unusual, which is we're putting all the money into a pot and we vote as a group, and then we only invest in one place as a group. And so in the process of doing that, not all of the feelings that some people have will be the ones that are selected. as Elaine was talking about before, right? And so that's an interesting question. So we as a group have to come to some level of consensus, and that consensus is really a gestalt of whatever the emotions are in the group, which is why it's important for people to be engaged. It's important for people to talk about what they're sensing and where they're going and engage in that. But I want to turn the conversation a little bit more towards the geeky analytical side for a bit. So you're going to see a bunch of companies over and over again, and they're going to evolve in your understanding of them. And we would like to sort them and cut half of them each cycle. And so we want you to build a spreadsheet that represents the foundations of your evaluation of the company, which in the end ends up being some level of a model of your investment thesis. And so Martha, being the data person that she is, has a experience of doing that. So when she comes in, she builds a spreadsheet. Martha, would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah,
And not just any spreadsheet.
yeah, all right. The mother of all spreadsheets. Is that what you'd say, Elaine? Well, I have two. There's a spreadsheet that I use when I'm first going through the companies, because we might be going through 80, 100, and that's a lot of work. And so I choose about 5, 6, and as other, I mean, my ideas change over time, and so this is what I've been using recently. I took off the names, but I have the area that they're in. And what you'll kind of notice, so column C is full team. So I'm looking for someone technical. That's usually pretty easy. I'm looking for management. I'm looking for some sort of marketing or sales, something like that. If they don't have any kind of marketing sales, then that's a real big red flag for me. And so that's that might be like I'd give them a 1 or a 2. And then there's delivery. Have they demonstrated that they can deliver? And in a 1-minute pitch, this might be really tricky, but if you go into Gust, you can go into Gust and they'll have a pitch deck. And so if they don't have a pitch deck, that's also something that to me says they can't deliver. But is there evidence here that they can deliver? Do they have some, oh, okay, so they've, and I haven't even gone through this, so I don't know, but okay, here's their team. Okay, they're all old white guys. That says something. And they don't really have any evidence that they can deliver. So I can go through that. That's my second one. And I can make a decision pretty quickly. And it's just kind of ballpark. I'm just trying to throw the spaghetti against the wall, see if it sticks. Then their product, are they adding value? Is this something that is really important? And I tend to look at it from a business point of view. Although I've been kind of changing with that. Is this something that will actually add value to a business, or is this warm and fuzzy something? Do they have evidence of traction? So this is kind of like delivery. And then do they have evidence of income? Do they have evidence that they're measuring things? And you could think about this all, pretty well all of this, except for perhaps the adding value, is talking about the team. These are ways for me to look at the team. And so my first pass through a bunch of companies is looking at the team. Oh, this was last time when we had, what, 115 companies. So it takes me a couple minutes to go through them all. And then, as Elaine was kind of indicating, once I'm doing due diligence, then I have this other one here that, let's see, make it a bit easier to see. So I have 6 main areas that I'm looking at. And I've got it set up so that it comes up with numbers, but I may or may not follow the numbers. And what's important to notice about this, besides it being super anal, is that very nor sufficient. Now, I do think coachable is very important. Are they trustworthy? Are they a full team? I think that's important. Evidence of delivery, and do they have diversity? I think that's an important thing in a team. But I voted for teams that were all old white guys because I thought they were a really good team. And so I can override anything that I think isn't that important, or if they've convinced me that they're a great team, even though they don't have a lot of diversity. So these are kind of the main areas that I just want to make sure that I'm thinking about them. I may or may not actually vote on that, but team is important. Their product or service, sales and marketing, their infrastructure. So are they making metrics? Do they have a legal team? Do they understand those sorts of things? Is their cap table reasonable? How are their finances? And then I've got a space for other areas. So I try to make sure that I'm looking at, when I'm doing the due diligence, this is in the month at the end, that I'm looking at all of these areas. I'm at least thinking about it. And maybe I go, well, you know what? It's not really that important. But, oh, whoops, I forgot to look at their moat. What is their moat? And then that will remind me to go back and ask them about it. Anyway, I can go, I mean, I'm welcome to share this with anyone who wants copies of these. But I think part of what we're trying to say is that we want you to come up with your own thesis. And you'll notice that mine is really skewed to the team and to their effectiveness and not what they're producing. And we've kind of talked about it earlier. If you have the right team, it kind of doesn't matter what they're producing. Because if you have the right team, they're going to do good work. And if you don't have the right team, it doesn't matter what they're producing because they're not going to be able to manage it. They're not going to be able to handle what's going to come at them. Even if they're good people, if they can't pivot, if they can't handle the hard times and the crap that's going to come at them during this process, they're going to die. And I don't want them to take my money with them for that.
So I have another spreadsheet that I can use as an example, but I want to sort of put some caveats on this. The first caveat I want to put on this is when you get a really good checklist, that checklist gets more and more and more detailed, which as the way people keep working on it, they end up going deeper and deeper and deeper. And if you dig on a startup hard and long enough, you can always get to a no. And so there's a certain amount of getting a sense of where they're at. And we know that these companies are incomplete by definition. And so there's no point in getting to the point where, hey, there's a thing missing. Guaranteed there's a thing missing in every one of these companies. Guaranteed there's something important missing in all of these companies. And that there's a fatal flaw that will kill them at some point. But the underlying habit, especially for people who have been trained in the habits of big companies, is they get a checklist and they get safer and safer and safer, and they basically skew themselves to investing in later and later and later and later companies. So our check size determines the stage of a company that we can invest in. And if you want to invest in a Series B company, but you're writing a pre-seed size check, you are doing everyone a disservice in there. And so it's well worth your while to understand that a company is investable independent of its arc. It can be a guy and an idea and a dog, or it can be, some traction and an idea, or it can be an idea, subtraction, and a prototype. All of these are investable. You just have to understand what the thing is that you're investing in and how that works.
Yeah, I think it's important to notice that Martha had two versions of her spreadsheet, right? She had the one that she uses for the initial run through, and she had the one that she used when she was doing the deeper analysis. If you walk away with anything tonight, work on that first one, work on getting something that's just going to help you make that initial analysis. One of my favorite sessions that we did, just the investor meeting last in SAC 25, is we actually, John broke us up into groups and we said, okay, what is one of those criteria? Mine was economic moat, the team that I worked on. And we said, what's a 1 in economic moat? What's a 2, you know? And so you will get time throughout the course of this to build that sort of deeper spreadsheet that gives you that's going to, you know, give you that better analysis of what matters to you and your investment thesis. But that first one, if you can, you know, there's lots of articles out there. We've given you a few pointers. That David Rose book is really good. But just like, is there like, you know, 3 to 5 things you can use that will just give you an initial sorting of your companies? You know, that's sort of your first order of business here.
Yeah. Vinay?
I think we indexed a little bit on team on the company side, but from an angel investor team's perspective, most of the folks here are probably new or probably people who are doing it the first few times. So the biggest leverage that I see of all the folks here is probably money, that typically what companies are interested in. What else do you see are the value addition that we as angel investors are bringing in? And I would like people's thoughts on that.
So I think it's really important. Angel investing is essentially, the money in angel investing is simply buying your attention to the company. And if you are not creating value beyond the money that you're putting in, it's not the investment for you. And so there's an opportunity for you to create value. And the way that that value gets translated is that you actually change the valuation of the company when you create value for the company. And so it helps you get more money back when you help the company. And you can do that through expertise. You can do that through relationships. You can do that through feedback. You can do that through introductions. There's plenty of different things that you have. And if not you personally, then the team of the 40 of us will have that will help that company get through to the next step, right? And avoid hitting that tree and avoid making that particular mistake that this other person has already made before. And so we can, you know, tune that and make the company go better, faster. And if we're not able to do that, then this is probably not the correct investment for us. And the opportunity for us to find 1,000 companies to look at is real every year. They're all around. And if you're only doing 4 investments, there's no reason for you to drop money, just money in. And if all you have to contribute because you have no time, if the only thing you have to contribute, then probably the best thing to do is to become an LP in somebody else's fund, not to be playing the role of an active angel investor. Elaine?
Sure. I just want to go back to the point of using someone else's spreadsheet. And I'll use it as an example. And Martha and I have worked together for a long time. And so I know Martha, like I'm on point counterpoint. So in your spreadsheet that you had for the 1-minute pitches, right? One of the things I've found is that probably more than likely in these early companies, there's not going to be a full team. So like when I think about that and what Martha said was important to her, I don't want to just take Martha's spreadsheet. I want to learn from Martha's spreadsheet and go, oh man, for me, traction, I got to make sure traction is really important in mine. And yeah, do I think that they're creating something that's scalable, that sort of thing? But probably is it a full team is probably not as critical for me at this point in time, because I will tell you that almost every company we're going to see right now is not going to have a full founding team. However, to Martha's point, I am unlikely to invest in just a sole founder with no team. So, you know, in terms of where Martha's looking for a full team, I'm probably, to say as a check, I'm probably looking for, is there just an founder with no other person? And that's probably a minus. So to the point, I think it is good for reference. It's really good for reference to see what other people are valuing and doing. But when it comes time to creating your spreadsheet, don't just copy and paste. That's where kind of, I think the thought comes in, would be my just quick POV.
Well, thanks. Trish?
Yeah, I was gonna say on the like what do we give other than money? I think you can think about what are your strengths and what's your day job, because you'd be surprised, especially when they're early stage. The two things that the company that I worked on diligence for, the biggest feedback they gave me was, first of all, they're a super technical team, and there were times where our diligence team was like, we literally don't understand what you're saying. Like, dumb it down for us. And it actually helped them improve their pitch to be able to communicate to people who maybe don't have quite as technical of a background as them. So that was one like tangible thing that was actually really helpful for them. The second was they had a founder, they built the financial model. And when we asked them to share it, they're like, yeah, I'm struggling. I'm having issues getting something. So as soon as I find the error in my model, I'll share it. And I said, hey, this is like what I do. Do you want to just share it? And if I find the error, I'll tell you what it is. They were like, yeah, sure. Right. And obviously that's going to depend on like the trust that you've built with that team. Like some founders are like, I don't want you to see my ugly. But with this founder in particular, we built like really good rapport, and they knew that I wasn't going to judge them for what, as somebody who's had a career in this, a very easy mistake to make. It's just, you know, they needed the time and energy to dig into it. So you can add value, is the TLDR of that.
Cool. Vinay, did we cover what you wanted there?
Sure. I think the TLDR is people with diverse backgrounds would probably help founders in different ways. I think that's
Absolutely.
my statement.
Yeah, excellent. Hitesh?
Yeah, I just had more follow-up questions just on this topic. I would love to understand maybe like one or two examples how investors were able to engage more deeply with founders. I imagine, I think there's like a lot of trust element to it. If you could like walk me through like one or two examples, how an investor was able to build a connection, how they contributed through the 3 months of the conference, and then they stayed engaged with that founder, maybe for a couple of months after the conference was over, or maybe a year or something like that.
Tristan, you want to answer this?
Yeah, because I just met with one of our founders a few days ago, and it was one from 2 years ago. And I just reached out to her and I said, because I'm connected to her on LinkedIn, she's been doing great stuff. And I'm like, okay, what can I do to help you? You know, you've got like this amazing traction going. She's like, I'd like to really get into your neighborhood in the Pacific Northwest. How can you help raise the visibility? It's a product for homeowners to install in their home. So, you know, how can I raise the visibility? So I'm, you know, active in the Seattle area. I can get that message out and start talking about it. Second, we're starting to raise another round. How do we sort of think about you know, other investments or investors, and how do we get introduced to other investors? So, you know, those were two, you know, real things that I could talk to her about. I could talk to her about like, well, what would it take to break into this region? Who are the players? That sort of thing.
And you were not the lead on the investment into that company. And
Yeah.
you were just on the due diligence team of that company.
Yeah. And
But
yeah.
Hitesh is trying to understand the whole elephant all at once here. You know, how do I do the 10-minute or 1-minute pitch, the 3-minute pitch, 10-minute pitch, the winning and the taking care of everything? Maybe we should sort of slice it a little bit. How do you build a relationship with a founder? That's to you, Kristan.
Oh, it's to me. Oh, I was looking at Elaine. Yeah, I mean, in this case, she and I both used to work at HP, and her husband did too. So, and she has a PhD in an area that my daughter's getting her PhD in. So, I went to the mix and mingle. If you remember, that was one of the first things we did, and we had breakout rooms, and I went and talked to her in that breakout room and talked to her about sort of those things and made a personal relationship with her. She may have been one of my coffee talk people as well, but yeah. So, and you're asking them questions, but you're also sharing things to Trish's point about your background, right? I've done a lot of work in healthcare. So I have helped some of the founders as they've been looking at, sort of public health kind of things.
That help, Hitesh?
So for another perspective on that and answering John's question. So there is a company where I did a coffee session with one of the founders. I happen to have done some of when we have some SAC pitch deconstruction clinics, have worked through with founders to help kind of judge and give feedback on their pitches. So for this company after I had seen their 1-minute pitch and their 3-minute pitch, trying to say, okay, I have some feedback for you from your 3-minute pitch to your 10-minute pitch. Would you like to talk about that? So we had a separate conversation and talking about that. And then just so happens that I was on the due diligence committee for that same company. So then as I dug in more, it's like, oh, wow, I'm looking at your cap table, and I have some questions about your cap table, and I kind of think you have a high salary. So one of the things, since I've seen a lot of cap tables and salaries and companies come through and pitches, I can kind of give you the feedback that says, hey, I'm not telling you need to change your salary. What I am telling you is you are on the high end of the spectrum. Let me give you the data points. So when you're going into other investors, one of the things angel investors don't want their money to go to is only to salaries. Our money is supposed to help you move to milestones that move forward to get you to this next point, right? So that was a conversation that I had in the due diligence process. This company actually won. And so then some of what the winners, I would say ideally I would like to see is that they give us as an investors quarterly updates in email, where we understand what opportunities they have coming up, what challenges they have, and what they need, right? And so one of the things I saw is that this company was going to another angel opportunity, of which one of the founders in my portfolio had already gone through and won. So what I did is connect the two of them together so that the new CEO could learn from the old CEO who went through that process. Super valuable, and ended up giving them critical feedback on how to navigate the other angel group. So those are like 3 different examples of what I was able to do with the same founder, kind of going through that whole process with one on a longitudinal line that are all kind of different areas. I hope that helps.
And that's a perfect example of give first in angel investing, where she was creating value for that company and every interaction that she was doing. And that becomes a foundation then of building a long-term relationship with that founder. Trish, your hand's up.
I was just gonna say, I think too, like you get out of it what you put into it, right? So there's throughout SAC, there'll be these breakout groups, and early on, it's often just kind of random bouncing around, or because you saw their 60-second pitch or their materials online and you're curious, you go find those people. Obviously, as the group whittles down, you're gonna be spending more time with the founders who persist. And then when you get to the final 6 companies and we're doing diligence, you're going to be spending a ton of time with your founder and their team. And so like the way I think about it is the founder that I worked with, and I was our team's diligence lead. So we're chatting all the time, right? Like that person is somebody who I built really strong relationships with. But there are a couple of other folks that just in a breakout room, we hit it off, like Christiane's story about maybe you've got something in common, or maybe it truly is like you can help them in some way. We've just kind of hit it off and stayed in touch. And so those are people that I might be on their company's investor updates, even though I didn't invest in them, right? I'm still getting the updates, or we're connected on LinkedIn and we're messaging back and forth and kind of interacting in that way. And then there's sort of like everybody else, which you probably will connect with on LinkedIn anyways, and you might see things here and there. So just like there's lots of opportunities to build those relationships and to interact with founders, and there's just going to be differing depth, like organically throughout SAC, and then on top of it, it's like what you have time and energy and are willing to do.
Yeah, thank you so much. Immensely helpful.
Cool, thanks. So it is the case that we have a bunch of videos that are workshops that are diving in deeper on a bunch of the edge cases here. I put them into the chat, so I would encourage you to go to the YouTube channel for Seattle Angel Conference and look and see if there's anything useful for you. For example, Lisa, I would recommend you go look at the one about donor advised fund, how to be an impact venture capitalist using a donor advised fund. I think that might be very useful from a philanthropic point of view, and something you can talk to your friends about when they ask you why you're doing this crazy angel investing thing. You can talk about the bridge from philanthropy to angel investing in an interesting way. So I want to show the slide deck from or the deck from Fuang.
Did we share her spreadsheet?
No, I'll do it.
Got it.
I hope I do. Let's see if it works, because it's not always been working. I see a black screen. Do you see an active screen?
See a black screen.
Yeah, so Christiane, I think I want you to show it.
Okay.
I don't know why it does that for me these days. I'm going to have to get out my bottle brush and clean out this computer. So Fuang was one of our investors in the Transatlantic Angel Conference, and she had a lot of experience at evaluating companies that were a little bit more mature. And so she built a pretty nice spreadsheet that outlined what she was doing. And I want to sort of go through that, right? So team, product fit, market, keep going down. Business model, scalability, traction, financing, gut feeling. It was really nice that she was putting gut feeling into that conversation, because there were a lot of places where she had a sense, but she didn't know where to put that sense. And so it at least gave her a place to put something down. Look, and if you look at the things down below, we send out the list of all of the companies. And then she was working on, these are the ones that are happening with the semifinalists, and these are where we're dealing with the people after the 10-minute pitch, right? And so trying to do the math on those different things. Yeah, click on that. And then you can see, no, instead of going down, go sideways.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, hang on. It's not.
Yeah. So you're going to have to undo the lock. I think it's under edit, or sorry, view. Yeah, freeze. And so you're doing, not doing hidden, you're doing unfreeze, right?
And it's not that.
So select the upper corner where it says where there's an empty spot above A1.
Okay.
Click the corner up into the, no, below where it says A1, there's an empty square.
Okay.
No, under A1.
Here's A1.
Sorry,
A2.
see where it says A2 in the up above by the equation.
Oh, this right here.
Yeah, now the empty square that's below the A3, empty square selects everything in the click there. No, over back to the left.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. I'm not seeing this.
So there's an
Like
empty
in the header,
under the header where
the
it's
gray box.
an empty square down and to the left.
this
Thank
guy.
you. Click.
There you go, right there.
Okay.
That selects everything when you click on it.
Yeah, and nothing's happening. I click on it. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go down one more. Yeah, that one. Yeah. Now go click on view and click on, maybe it is that you do not have write permissions.
Technology.
So
I'm sorry.
yeah,
Never
select,
keep
since we don't care about the companies, just select all of the A through F columns.
Okay, A through F.
Yeah,
And
just click.
You want me to just
yeah, and
hide
make them
those?
really small. No, make them small. Just
Oh.
make the width really small.
Ugh, it's not even letting me do that.
Just click on the vertical bar between E and F.
Yeah, it's
Vertical bar between E and F. Yep.
Yeah, it's not letting me do that. Sorry, it's just not letting me do any of those things. How about if I just see if I can hide that? No, it won't even let me hide them.
Interesting. All right. Well, then we're going to have to suffer through the thing.
Sorry.
So go back all the way to the right.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So there's an overview, set of comments, a gut feeling. Keep going to the left, or sorry, to the right. Yeah. Overview. You know, trying to create the rating, trying to give the feelings of where it was, but that was should have been derived by the particular votes. So if you go click on the calculations on the next screen over. So output is what the results were, and the calculations were the ones for all the details.
Right. So that one was 29. Oh, this one
Well,
must have gotten in there.
but go to the right some more and see all the columns, right? So she's got team and what are the issues with team and product fit and all of the issues with that. And she's doing calculations on each of the things and what the details mean for each thing. And she was very, very, very detailed about all of the issues and all of the things that Martha was sort of detailed on. She was way detailed on, and she jumped into all of the little details. And at the end of all of this glorious detail, she decided that she had gone too deep and that it really didn't provide her with the insight that she needed, and that it was easier to do more like what Martha was doing, right? It's important to know what the issues are, but the evaluation at that level of detail really did not help her understand. And if you, let me go back to the fodder link. So I put two links into the chat. I will put them back in. They are the results of some due diligence work in previous things, which are basically outlining the questions that came up in the conversation, which would translate to essentially this very, very, very detailed spreadsheet of which you need to be aware of it, but your evaluation should be much shallower. Otherwise, you'll spend, 100% full time at this and still not get done in the amount of time that you have.
But wouldn't you, like, this right here is a really good list as a starting point. If you, like I said, I think your task right now is go see if you can make an initial spreadsheet of the things that you care about. And we've given you some resources. Like, this is a great list to pull from: team, product fit, market, business model, scalability, traction, financing, and gut feeling. So that some subset of that. And to me, it's easier if I pick 5 or less. Is a great thing to start with when you're just looking at that 1 minute pitch and like the overall, how do I get that 60 down to 24?
Absolutely. You want to stop sharing?
Yes.
So does anybody have any questions about that experience? Ben,
Yeah.
tell
No
me.
question. Yeah.
Yeah, what'd you
Um,
get out of what we just said besides lots and lots of spaghetti
And Ben
thrown in
has
your face?
experience. Tell us what you think, Ben.
I have no experience with angel investing so far. I only invest in fund, and then I invest in a couple of sidecar. But the reason I want to join this is because I want to understand like which one I should invest in and stuff for Angelus.
And so the common pattern is people will go to Angel List. They'll find somebody that's saying, hey, there's this really cool company, rah, cool company. There's no due diligence done. And again, in my pedantic way, I think if you as an angel investor are not doing due diligence, then you are not being an angel investor. So you need to be doing due diligence and understanding for yourself what the boundaries are and where the risks are and how these things work. And if you're not doing that, then it's not angel investing, it's something else. You can be a limited partner, you can be a follower of somebody else, but that's letting them do the angel investing and you're just supporting them with money essentially.
Yeah. So I think like this checklist is very helpful. At least I have step to follow.
Okay, cool. Margot, your hand's up.
Yeah, curious, John, in your due diligence or any of you, does it always require talking to the founding team? Because I imagine if you're just writing a $5,000 check, like they're not going to want to spend hours with you as you go through due diligence.
Well, I don't think you should go to founders with a $5,000 check.
Right. So I
I
guess when
think
you're
you
part
should-
of like an SPV or a group, how are you personally doing all the due diligence without talking to them?
No, I think you are talking to them, and I think that it's a function of the culture of the group. And then when you're doing an active angel fund like we do, we would expect there to be many interactions between all the members of the group and the various things that they're evaluating. But I would also expect for there to be a division of labor where some people pick one and some people pick the other, and people come back and share, and there's a group activity involved that sort of spreads it out so that they're not getting the same question 40 times from 40 different people, right?
Gotcha.
But there are many ways for groups to work together, and that culture matters. But in our structure, we have specific points where we're forcing them to be in a specific place running into you. And so we have breakout rooms where their engagement is structured, and that makes it go faster for everyone. And that's very different than the people that show up at various pitch events and then cherry pick people in the hallway, right? Very, very wide range of angel behavior.
Gotcha.
So the real question is, who are the 10 or 20 or 40 other people that want to write a $5,000 check with you, or better yet, want to write 4 $5,000 checks with you this year? So you have a little minor fund of $1 million, and then you go find your 4 and 5 investments as a group. And because you got $1 million in the pot, people pay attention. Yeah. Other thoughts or questions about this checklisty thing that we did? So David Rose, oh, go ahead.
I should say, I know I also started too detailed and then got less detailed as time went on and then went back into being more detailed. So I think you said it earlier, John, but like a big part of this is helping investors learn what works for them. So if you come in and you kind of have an idea of what works for you, great. But tell people what works for you and listen to what works for other people. And if you don't, like that's okay. This is a great place to sort of experiment and see, like, I think this is going to matter to me. And then, Martha was saying, like, even with hers, sometimes she doesn't look at the numbers because she's trusting her gut. And so I know I had a lot of angst starting SAC about like, because I know how I do things on my own, but how am I doing things in a group? And I just don't have that angst. You'll figure it out and it's okay. And everybody's here learning from each other. So, and that includes experienced people as well as brand new people.
Elaine?
I would follow that up on the angst department. So if you're not comfortable with spreadsheets or you see these spreadsheets and you roll your eyes, you go, oh my gosh, it just glazes over. Don't worry. That does not have to be your thing. Everybody kind of coalesces on different things, right? I would say when we started, SAC 7, there was no spreadsheet tool that we were talking about, and we still made investment decisions, and they're still alive. And
Well, if you remember, in the due diligence meetings, I was drawing spreadsheets up on the board, and that's where the fodder list came from.
And if you remember, those spreadsheet kind of things up on the whiteboard were very simple, and at the end and through the 6 finalists. So
Yep.
I don't want people to feel like they have to be an Excel wizard to be an angel investor. You don't.
Right.
You don't.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm a data geek and I look at whoever's person from tax spreadsheet was and go, oh my gosh. So what you will find what's comfortable for you, and what the role of SAC is to be able to introduce different opportunities to you, so you can understand what gravitates to you, what works with you, what people do you find that you learn from, how do you want to think about that moving forward. So as a forum, you can come out the other end knowing more than what you went in.
Right.
And investing at the same time.
Cool. Hitesh?
Yeah, my question is about the voting. Is that a binary vote, or are there like a couple of axes that people vote on?
It is a binary vote where we take a super majority, which we revote and revote and revote. And so just, go with the flow on the voting.
Okay.
Sometimes there's yes, maybe, no's.
Sometimes there's yes, maybe no. Sometimes the maybes trip us up and we have to throw them under the bus. Yeah.
Maybe that's tricky.
Yeah. So the hardest part is that you know what you want to invest in at some level, even if it's a, close your eyes and pick level. It's very difficult when you have a group of other people that have other feelings to get to a common place. And so we're doing a lot of social engineering to try to get a group to come to a consensus at some level. And that consensus process ends up being useful about teaching you what you weren't paying attention to before. Yeah. Christiana, there are other things you want to make sure that we cover?
No, I did mention that we use Slack for sort of offline discussion, and that has actually proven to be really fruitful for, asking questions that you thought of after the event, and talking about specific companies and that sort of thing. So the Tuesday nights are not the only time that we talk about some of this.
And it's totally okay if you've never used Slack before.
Yeah. So Jesse, do you have anything you want to make sure we cover before we call it the end of the day?
Not really. I do have one thought when Margot was asking about like how, you know, entrepreneurs even cared about the $5,000 or, you know, the 200,000, right? Like that we pulled together. I had that thoughts, you know, I call it like imposter syndrome, right? Like, you know, when I started to SAC 25, I was like, why would they even care about, you know, talking to us over and over and proving like, you know, that their worth to our relatively small pool. But my experience really turned out to be the opposite. So I, you know, I even asked the one founder, I think that was the company that I was on the due diligence team on, like, you know, they made it to the final round, but you know, I was just like, they were on the East Coast, so they were like, you know, staying up all night, like, right, like every single Tuesday, right, and also throughout the 4 weeks, talking to us, providing information, introducing us to their networks, and you know, everything, right. They said they cared because, you know, there are several reasons. One, they do value the, you know, all these value-added activities that we provided, as Trish and Martha talked about before, Elaine, in how we helped them, you know, pitch better as they will, you know, go through rounds and rounds of pitching. And also, you know, they see Seattle Angel Conference as almost like a stamp of approval, right? Like once you know, they made it to the final, you know, that gives them a, you know, the confidence and also the reputation, right? For them to, you know, continue seeking investment. So yeah, just wanted to add that, and, you know, do take advantage of, you know, all the opportunities that you have interacting with the founders. I personally, you know, am like, you know, receiving, you know, requests for feedback even after the voting was done, right? Like, you know, they do value whatever input feedback that you give them.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So any last questions from any folks? Not seeing any twitches there. So we tend to point people at the David Rose book. David Rose also has another book, which is the Startup Checklist book. It's a little bit, we'll call it later stage, right? It's the go and do everything in gory detail kind of checklist. And so you really have to edit it down for what you think is stage appropriate for the company. There's some things that don't make sense in different contexts. But I would encourage you to go take a look at the recordings that we have from the workshops. Encourage you to read some of the books. And in the next 3 weeks, we have the opportunity to bring in another 15 companies, and then I'll close the door. So if you see a local company that you care about that you think would be good to have in, please invite them to hurry up and sign up, because when I get to 60, I'm going to try to close the door on the applications. And then we do have some room for others to join us in the investor possibility. So if you have friends that are willing to come join with you, now's a good time to have that conversation with them, especially if you can get them in to come for the next meeting, because I think the conversation with Yoko about how to ask investor questions is going to be just sublime.
Pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, I expect it to be excellent. So
Also, Yoko is so great. I'm on vacation and I think I'm still gonna dial into that one.
yeah,
I know she's awesome.
yeah.
She's awesome.
So Minda and Yoko are examples of what we hope to do with our process. You know, they come and they participate as you are participating, and then they became the assistant fund manager, and then they became the fund manager, and then they went on to create their own micro VC fund called First Row Partners. and have been very helpful in the ecosystem, being very present, helping people learn how to be effective at this early pre-seed stage. So a perfect example about why we do this program.
Don, can you remind us about the date and time of the next one with yoga?
Yeah, so the next one is next Tuesday at 6 o'clock. And I not doing the math very quickly in my head about what day that is, but it's next
The
Tuesday.
20th. It's the 20th.
20th of August, yeah. And we will take this recording and put it up on the YouTube channel along with all of our other YouTube-y things. And if you find interesting little spots where I say something or Trish says something that are particularly interesting, we could turn into a short, please note the time and send me a note and we'll go turn that into a short. Thanks so much for joining us. I look forward to seeing you next week. And we'll try and make this a great experience for everyone.
It was great seeing you all. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.